Good evening, yet again, fine people of the internet. Here we are again, back in the Hajime Os project. And today, as I said before, I will be teaching you how to mix metal drums. Real useful skill to have. Thank you, Sam. Thank you. So that was my latest track, a humble sort of arrogance that was playing over the opening screen. A little more sedate than this particular track. But also, obviously, it was nice for a little relaxing opening, but not so much for a how to mix drums. Because, didn't have a drum track on it at all. Not the most useful thing in the world. In any case, so the thing you have to understand about mixing drums, or mixing any metal instrument at all, is that you need to keep the whole project in mind. Because if the drums sound good on their own, then it's okay, but there is still a higher than zero chance that it'll fuck up frequencies in other instruments. And you do not want that. So, but first a demonstration. So, let's assume we worked backwards a bit. That we imported the drums into the project, but pre-mixed everything else, but elected not to mix the drums. How would that sound like? Spoiler alert, not very good. Let's find out. So, hardly bad, but still, it's glaringly obvious that we have a lot of work to do on these. As per usual, but that is no problem. It's actually a fairly simple process. It's a lot of steps, but in the end, it's still pretty simple. Because you may have noticed, there were certain instruments that weren't poking out, getting lost in the mix, that you could barely hear, and others that were just, had some irritating resonances to deal with. But again, it's a fairly simple process in the end. And to start with, we're going to start with the kick drum. This little instrument right here. Again, hardly a bad sound on its own, but there's still clearly some work to be done. And what should we do to begin? Well, let me consult my notes. This is what we're going to be doing first. We're going to pull up an EQ. So, fun fact, this is actually something I didn't do on the quote-unquote final version of the song, funnily enough. This is a technique that I did use on my old PC, the piece of shit that I could barely stream on, but I forgot to install this plugin when I switched machines, so this is a technique that I actually haven't used in months. But I just remembered it today, so I might as well share it with all of you as well. Once I start reincorporating this into my drum tracks, I'm sure they will sound all the better for it. So, the plugin we're going to use is this handsome little beast, PTEQX by Ignite Amps. The same people who make my cabinet simulation, power amp simulation. These guys just make amazing plugins in general, especially if you're in the middle. So, as we see here, what we're going to do with this EQ, although specifically it's going to be the center EQ. This plugin is actually 3 different equalizers in one, but the only one we're interested in today is this one here in the center, which they call PEQ1A, I believe. So, here's why so many studio types rely on Pultec EQs. Obviously, this being analog gear, it just sounds naturally a little more musical, but there's another little quirk of them that serves a lot of serves the average engineer rather well. And to do that, I'm going to bring up another plugin called Span. This right here is a frequency analyzer. I'm not going to explain it too much. Pretty much all you gotta know is it'll give you a visual indication of what's going on with the audio. Nothing, very useful for mixing, but again, this is more for visual aid purposes than anything else. It's not a proper tool in and of itself. It's not going to affect the audio in and of itself, which is fine and dandy because that's not what I want. So, what makes pulsing EQ special? Well, allow me to show you. First of all, let's set this low frequency to 30 Hz. This is usually where the trick I'm going to use. This is where we want the knob. So, let's solo the kick. This is what the EQ curve looks like by itself. So, let's boost this a bit. Let me see if I can give you a better view of this. Also, hello, John. Pleasure to see you. So if you observed over here in the below 100 Hertz area, the higher this was, the bigger the bump was. Now, let's use this knob, attenuation. This boosts it, this cuts it down. That's what attenuation means, just turning the frequency down. So, let's use this knob and I'll show you what it does here. So you both see and hear it. It's a little more obvious in this case. Not only was it lowering the bump, it was also lowering the bump in a slightly higher register than this knob was. This is the quirk of pulsing EQs. They do not boost and attenuate the same frequency, even if you technically have it set there. This is an interesting little quirk, which you might think is a bad thing, but no. Because observe what happens if I boost and attenuate them at the same time. You see what I did there? Did you hear what I did there, more importantly? If not, I will spell it out. So, what this does is, this adds to the nice low end, the nice subharmonic frequencies that the kick drum is supposed to be holding down for you. But, if you also attenuate the same frequency, technically, it also gets rid of a bit of the mid-range wool. Which means, because if you noticed, the kick drum had a bit of a smiley face sort of EQ curve. Which is what we want for a kick drum. We do not want any mid-range content. This is a bass instrument. We do not want it to compete with the guitars or the snare drum or any of that shit. Hence why this trick is so good. It gets rid of those frequencies, but if we boost the same frequency, we also get the nice thumpy high end that'll make your subwoofer really move. So, let's play it in the mix with its on and off. Okay, so it's not immediately obvious what it's doing, but it will become obvious later on. Especially after we do the next step of mixing, which is we pull up a second equalizer plugin. This one you've seen before. This right here is the dead duck channel, which, as indicated here, is what is called a solid state logic equalizer. Sorry, Emmy, another day. I'm not playing music, I'm just showing you how to mix it. This is a bit, the geeky shit. Musicians may look like chads, but this is the sort of legwork that has to go into a song in order for it to sound even remotely palatable. So, anyways, these are the notes. You look here, these are the notes of broadly what is going on here. So, as you see here, high pass at 40 hertz. So, what's this doing? Let me show you. Let me bring the span back up, and I will show you. So, what a high-pass filter does, as I've mentioned on numerous streams before, is that it cuts out frequencies that are below a certain threshold. In this case, around 40 hertz. Specifically 44 hertz in this case. So, if I solo up the kick, so admittedly it's not doing the not the most obvious effect, but again, it is critical. Pretty much all it's doing is just getting rid of the frequencies that are below the threshold of human hearing, so to speak. The frequencies that just don't need to be there. That you won't really hear, but will interfere with other frequencies. And especially, this was especially helpful to do after the low-end trick that we just did. Because technically we could have high-passed it back in that plugin. It had the right EQ. It had the right functionality to do it. It just was a little redundant. So I decided to do it here. Anyways, so now that we have the high pass on, let's get to the EQ. Emmy, please don't make me ban you. Anyways, so next up, we want to boost 55 hertz right after the high pass. Which means, let's set all these back to neutral real quick, just so I can demonstrate what's going on here. So, boost 55 hertz. So we'll bring it down. 59 is close enough. So, let's solo the kick. Technically, we did this already with the low-end trick, but a little extra doesn't hurt. We'll just give it a bit of a gentle touch. 4 decibels. We don't need a crazy boost. So next order of business, aggressively cut 700 hertz. Again, that's mid-range frequencies that we do not want in the kick drum. That's just going to interfere with instruments that actually need that mid-range. So, we will do so. Right here. Bump it up to 710. Again, you gotta be aggressive with that. You don't want that woolly mid-range all over your kick drum. So, as we see here, a bit of a gentle boost at 4.5 kilohertz. So most of what we did before was helping the low end, now we help the high end. This is what we do, too. This is for the click of the kick drum. This is how you know that it's playing whatsoever. Because in classic rock sort of context, you may notice that the kick drum doesn't have quite as obvious an attack, because it doesn't need to. Those genres don't have quite as much going on in the low end, but in a metal mix with ungodly amounts of distortion, ungodly amounts of bass frequencies that are all fighting for the same space, like, it's still contributing, but you still need to let it, you still need to let it be known that the kick is actually happening. Otherwise, you're going to make life hell for people trying to learn your drum part. So to that effect, we boost 4.5 kilohertz gently, which is up here. Whoops. .6, close enough. Again, not doing much, but it doesn't need to. So, now for the real star of the show. The 8 kilohertz. Watch this. And I just realized nothing made an effect because my dumbass forgot to turn this actually on. Okay, let me call a mulligan. That was completely my mistake. Alright, so. Boost to 55 hertz. Again, a bit ridiculous, thanks to the low-end tricks, so nice and gentle. Now, 700 hertz. Let's find it again. 710. This is what we're getting rid of. This is what we want to go away. Now, isn't that nice? Nice and scooped. That's what we want. Now again, we boost 4.5 kilohertz gently. Watch this. We do want that sound, but not that much of it, so again, nice gentle boost. And now, an aggressive 8 kilohertz boost. There we go. That's the attack we want. So again, the low-end mixing decisions weren't quite as obvious in context, but this one, when I get done with this, you will hear a difference, obviously. So let's unsolo it and play the track real quick. Like, see, notice, you can't even hear the kick. But if I click this on, as if by magic, you can actually tell that a kick drum is playing. This is what the 8 kilohertz boost is for. That's how you know that a kick drum is playing in a metal mix. And now, finally, as you can see, last step right here, compressor with a 3-to-1 ratio with a fast release and a slow attack. This is not a compression tutorial, so I'm not going to go into too much detail what any of that shit means. All you gotta know is, it just squishes the frequency, just makes it so that it has its own designated space in the mix, and just levels out everything. Makes the quieter hits match up a bit better with the louder hits. Not that that really applies to this particular mix, but either way. So again, we find the ratio, 3-to-1, right where I want it. 50 millisecond attack, that's pretty slow. Fast release, yeah, I guess this is basically everything I wanted to do. So we'll just let the song play and you'll see what it does. Again, a bit more on the subtle side, but critical, absolutely vital. And that's the kick all mixed down, and already you can tell a world of difference is right there. So next up is the snare mixing. Now, while I admit these are my notes, as a matter of fact, funnily enough, I actually don't really need to follow these if I'm using my usual snare sample. So, if I play this is my usual snare sample. sounds fantastic to me. So if I turn the effects on, it's just Dead Duck Channel again. And if I recall correctly, the only advice I followed was high pass, boosted 200 for a little extra body, cut at 500 hertz. I believe that's just for a ugly little snare rattling sort of frequency. Boosted 3 kilohertz and 6 kilohertz, which, if I recall correctly, were both in the name of helping the attack of the snare. So let's see if I'm right. Let's play this, just to jog my memory a bit. Again, not a world of difference, but... because again, that snare sample is absolutely fantastic. It's pretty much my favorite snare sample ever made. So, for the sake of argument, let's check out a snare sample that is would require a little more work. This is an alternate snare that I just rendered out earlier today, before the stream. So, this was, they both come from the same sample pack, actually, funnily enough. The Easy Drummer Hard Rock pack, which I cannot show you because these are pre-rendered. But anyways, so my usual snare is the Tama Bell Brass from that pack. This is the Ludwig Black Beauty. Very nice sounding snare in its own right, but again, still requires a little more work. So, let's just follow this advice here. First of all, high pass at 150. We'll go a bit gentler. We'll call 140 enough. Now let's turn on the EQ. Moderate boost at 200 hertz. That sounds like enough to me. Moderate cut at 500. There we go, 504, close enough. Yeah, that's just an irritating ring. We'll get rid of that. Perfect. Now, moderate 3 kilohertz boost. And then, finally, an aggressive 6 kilohertz boost. And I'm not liking how this snare rattle is affecting the tone, so... let's put on a gate. And I don't even need to change anything, just turning it on already gave me the exact effect I want. Perfect. Alright. So, now that we've done all that, let's go ahead and compare and contrast. We'll run the mix, and I will show you with and without. Little A-B sort of idea. That's more like it. Alright. Probably still have to do some volume balancing after that, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Because it was hitting 1.1, which is nowhere near where I want it. I would probably want it around -3. That's generally the agreed upon threshold you would want to place a track at, for it to be loud enough to be audible, ready to master, but still quiet enough that it's not just completely fucking with everything else. So, next up are the toms, which are all bust to one track in this particular case. So, first I gotta find a tomville. Or better yet, let's just dial it back a bit. We'll go to the previous section of the song that was based around a tom groove. So here they are, unaffected. So again, pretty nice right out of the box, but still need a little work. So, busting them all to one track is an either-or sort of idea. It depends on the needs of your particular mix. Because sometimes you want every tom individually mixed, because they're usually up to 5 different tom drums in the average drum kit. Sometimes some people want to mix them all individually. Other people separate what are called the rack toms, which are the higher pitched ones, and the floor toms, which are the 2 lower pitched ones. And then there's this method where you just bust them all to one track and just edit them as a whole. I don't know why I did it this way, but it is what I did. And once again, we have the dead duck channel to work with. Let me solo up this track. So if you observe this, again, high pass at 100 hertz. Again, just getting rid of the frequencies below human hearing. So you want to boost at 150 hertz. Because, again, it's a similar story to the kick drum. These are lower, bassier instruments, so you want them to hold down the low end a bit. And again, cut 300 at 800 hertz, same reasons. These are bass instruments. So, you want them, you don't want any mid-range in them, getting rid of the woolly, sort of fuzzy sort of frequencies. And then, again, 4 kilohertz and 8 kilohertz, that's all attack. Just sort of the crack of a stick that lets you know, oh hey, a tom's being played. So, the high-pass filter doesn't really make a difference. Not much of an audible difference, that's more of making my life easier later in the mix. So again, we will switch on and we will switch the EQ on and off, and I will show you the effect. Not too obvious on its own, but again, if we play the whole mix again, much nicer, much nicer. And you may feel like they're missing something still. You may have thought that the snare was also missing a little something, but we'll get to that in due time. Just hold on a bit. So the next up is the cymbals, which applies to both the hi-hats and the overhead tracks. And for both of them, largely all I feel the need to do is high-pass them at around 500 to 1,000 hertz. And the hi-hats case, let's see, this is a two-pronged approach. In the more realistic drum simulators, and especially if you're mixing live drums, there's going to be a lot of what is called bleed, which is microphones that are meant to only capture one particular instrument will capture another one, which is just sort of a physical limitation of drums, acoustic drums. Because drums are fucking loud. They're just naturally going to capture sounds that are loud enough, even if that's not exactly what they're supposed to be capturing. So, plus again, there may also be a couple of frequencies on the lower end that you don't want to deal with. So, same idea. So, for once, we're not using the dead duck channel, we're using one of the separate components, which is the filter. And again, just a low pass, which just cuts at 550 hertz. So, let's highlight a part where it's playing. Well, that was embarrassing. I hope that wasn't, I hope I didn't do that in the final mix of the actual music. See, this is sort of a problem with terminology. You think low pass and high pass, oh, that cuts low frequencies and that cuts high frequencies, but no. This lets low frequencies pass, this cuts high frequencies, and this cuts low frequencies. This was what I wanted. So, I don't recall if the hi-hat was getting lost in the mix, but if so, that was why. Because I was killing all of its necessary frequencies. That's awkward. Anyways, we move over to the overheads, and this is the cymbals. Slash, again, it just sort of captures mainly the snare and toms it captures. Because again, a microphone that's meant to capture cymbals, they don't just call them overheads because they also capture the snare and toms, in a sense. Like, some of the frequencies in this mic are pleasant, but others are just going to result in muddying up your mix. So, observe this. So notice how the cymbals were the loudest instrument in that by far. And again, that is what you want. These are mainly for the cymbals. Mainly, adding ambience to other pieces of the kit is really supposed to be the secondary effect. So again, I'll let it play and then kick it on. Yeah, I don't recall if I went this aggressive within the final track, but I like how it sounds in an overhead. The overhead, you can afford to be a little more aggressive with the high pass. If you ask me. Your mileage may vary. That's why I said 500 to 1,000. Maybe you want it someplace 600 or 750-ish. Whatever the case, just experiment with it on your own time. And then finally there's the room. So just like it says, this just captures the room that the drum was recorded in. And I don't believe I did anything in particular to this track, because you generally don't need to if it's high pass at 200. That's what I'm supposed to do. So we'll just copy over another instance of the filter down to 205, why not? And we'll see. Sounds good to me. Some people compress the room, but I believe this was already pretty compressed as it came, so I'm not going to do that to this particular one. So, again, let's play this track with and without the mixing. We'll turn off all the effects, and then I will gradually turn them back on as the part plays. Once I scooch this over so that it's... Again, it already sounds pretty good on its own, but if I kick them on while the full mix is going, that's where everything we did will come together. Observe. So that was already some good work we did there, but it's still missing a little something. Something to make them sound, they could still sound even bigger. There could still be a little extra crack, a little more ambience, a little more space. And that's what this final track is for, called Plate. So what this is a plate reverb. This is a very common sight on metal drums, especially in more larger-than-life, bombastic sort of subgenres of metal, like your power metal, your slower, crackier heavy metal. You're not going to hear this much in the more intense death metal because those parts are a little more intricate. They require a little more... there's so much going on that you sort of can't afford to have the extra washiness, but again, this is a slow enough tempo that you can justify it. So the specific impulse I used was actually a commercial one that was offered free back when the wonderful little virus we're dealing with right now was only just starting to affect the world. This company, Morvox MSP, they offered a free impulse response pack of reverb impulses, as opposed to the cabinet simulation impulses. If you were here for my guitar tutorial, you might remember that. So, this particular impulse was my personal favorite. Big plate. For the exact reason you might think. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's massive. It's huge. And again, huge drums are what I want. That said, they're also not kidding about it being huge, because if minus 12 is the usual amount of reverb added, this is the default volume setting, but observe what happens if I do this. Yeah, slight problem. It is loud as a motherfuck, as you would expect by something called Big Plate. So, I'd rather have it closer to 0, and I will bring it down over here. I like to have it match up volume-wise with the room microphone. Just because that's just the sound I like. Again, these microphones all work in tandem. They are meant to all coalesce into one large whole. As in W-H-O-L-E. Large whole as in the entire thing. The whole enchilada. So again, we'll switch this off and on, and I will show you what effect it's having. Oh, one last thing I forgot to mention. It also has a built-in high-pass filter, which I put probably too low, now that I think about it. Should probably bump it up to a higher frequency. 185, we'll do it with that. But again, we will switch it off and on. A bit on the subtle side, but again, absolutely critical. It just adds so much heft, weight, massiveness, and space, mostly to our kicks and snares. Our snare and toms. That's my mistake. Don't add reverb to our kick, it sounds like shit. Unless you're doing some really weird vintage shit, but I do not advise it, still. So, yes, observe that. That is just about it, except for the fact that here's this optional little component here. This right here is the Hornet analog stage. You saw it last time when I did my guitar tutorial. And again, this is just a more subtle saturation. So, kick it on and off. And again, on its own, it doesn't give the whole picture, so we'll kick it on and off in the full mix as well. And come to think of it, we might as well just compare and contrast the two different snares. Because again, this was the one I used on the final track, and this was the alternative that I decided to mess with for the sake of the tutorial. So, let's compare and contrast. We'll start with the original, and then we'll go to the alternative. All fine and dandy, except for the fact that I just realized I made a critical error. I should have re-rendered this room mic because it is operating as if this is its snare. So, you're basically hearing a different snare's reverb in this track than you're supposed to. That was a silly mistake on my end, but at the very least, not the worst mistake in the world by any stretch. It actually still sounded pretty good. Maybe somebody, a real audiophile might be able to pick out the mistake, but to my ears at least, hardly the worst thing in the world. So, yes indeed, that is how you get fantastic drum sound out of a commercial plugin. Because the thing is, this is all pre-rendered off of a tune-track Easy Drummer. And this is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like $300 or $400 worth of software. As far as the sample sets go. These mixing tools are all free, fortunately, actually. Except for this one, Analog Stage, $20 full price, but if you wait for a sale, you can get it for like $5. This is an affordable signal chain. Oh yeah, the Reverb Impulse was also commercial, but technically I got it for free. I don't know what the regular price on it is. I haven't checked that website since April 2020. So, you'll have to forgive me for having gaps in my knowledge here. But in any case. So yeah, you're probably thinking, well, big whoop, yeah. I can get great drum sounds with fucking hundreds of dollars worth of samples. But I'm a poor motherfucker, I can't afford that. How am I supposed to get amazing drum sounds on a budget? Well, What if I told you that there was actually several sets of free drum samples that not only did the job, but also sounded really good, assuming you make the same mixing decisions you did here? Did I just blow your mind? Is that insane? Too insane for you? Do you not believe me? Because if you don't, that's fine and dandy. If I just open a new project here... Well, that's awkward. I didn't mean to completely close that down. But, no big deal. So, let me insert a track from template. Free metal drums. Now, observe. Let it load real quick, and look at this. So, I should probably mention that this is two different plugins. This is a signal chain that uses two different plugins working in tandem. So, the first up is MT Power Drum Kit, which is free, but they want a donation. Fine and dandy. They deserve money for this, because this is a fantastic plugin. It's generous enough that they're offering it for free. Like, I would say they earned the right to nag a bit. So, here is MT Power Drum Kit 2. This is what it sounds like. Except I forgot to add something. Silly me. Glad I caught that before that. So, here's the mistake I almost made. I can hear that, but you cannot. And that is because I need to place a certain plugin on the master bus. And that is Restream. Here we go. So, send the audio, local broadcast, and just like that, you can hear it again. Fantastic. So yeah, those cells sound good. And the cymbals sound good. So yeah, this is already perfectly usable for a metal context, but we're not going to be using the cells in this particular use case. Past one particular thing. So here's something cool about MT Power Drum Kit 2. This is basically freeware Easy Drummer 1, which means it has grooves built into it. We'll go with heavy. Check this out. It's basically a songwriting tool right in and of itself. Although again, this is more rock-based, popish, not really metal-based. If you want more metal drum tracks and you do not have Easy Drummer, then you would probably be better off either programming it yourself or else visiting my friends at Unga. They have many, many drum MIDI packs. All based around various types of rock and metal, very useful grooves, and again, very cheap if you catch them at a sale. And they put their shit on sale all the time, so I do urge you to check it out. So, let's just check this groove out. Let's see what this is about. So stretch it out to 4 bars. Sounds like a groove, all right. And again, all I had to do was drag it in there. Let's check one of these fills. Sure, send it. That's not what I want. Pardon me, I've actually never used this before. I guess I'll have to chop it up. No, you know what? I know what I'm gonna do. We'll delete these. Not quite as useful as I thought, but that's fine and dandy. What I really have to do is just drag them here, split off this measure, get rid of it. I don't think that's the exact groove I picked, but close enough. Now, 8th ride. Yeah, we're getting a bit sidetracked here. Don't mind it. I swear I'm going somewhere with this. Then again, this is probably not the worst engine in the world, because again, I'm showing you how to write drum parts for free without having to program it yourself. That's pretty amazing by any standard, don't you think? That's a pretty badass fill. Let's use that. And now, crash right. And one last fill. Perfect. And just like that, ipso presto, we have sort of a demo song. Isn't that cool? But with that, that's about as much as we're going to look at Empty Power Drum Kit for. It's a great kit, but in my experience, its shells aren't exactly the most suited for metal. You could do a lot worse, but you can also do a lot better. So allow me to show you how you can do better. Let's drag this down here. And allow me to introduce you to... Wait for it. Let it load. The Sean Pandy drums. Specifically the 64-bit multi version. So obviously, this is a little more interpretive of a graphic user interface here. You don't see the actual drums. They just tell you what they are up here, and you gotta take them on their word. But that's not that big of an issue, because allow me to show you what the shells sound like. Well, that's awkward. Let's see. I think I know what I did wrong here. So, mapping. This is their proprietary mapping, that's right. They have one that's a little more generalized, but I do not recall what folder I have that in. I'll try to look real quick. I'm going to throw up a loading screen. Sorry to kill the pace, but I think I've doxed myself enough on stream, so please bear with me a brief moment. And that's incredibly awkward. I could not find it. You'll have to forgive me for that. So I guess I'm going to do things the hard way very quickly. So let's glue these. There we go. Alright. Okay, pardon the screwery, I actually didn't need to change anything. That's the sublower, that's their little gimmick. If you copy the kick part over to this part. Yeah, let's experiment with a bit. We'll just take these parts and just... Yeah, that was the thing about that sublower. It was clearly not meant to be very loud. Better as a subtle element. But I can dig that. That's fine by me. So, however, I just showed you, unintentionally showed you the one downfall of this. That is only the shells. It only has kick, snare, and toms. No cymbals. Fortunately enough, we already have a drum plugin that is free that has its own set of cymbals. So let's see how well they play together. Now, doesn't that sound just absolutely wonderful? Fantastic. Especially considering it's absolutely free. Everything you heard so far out of that particular setup was absolutely free. The drum samples, every mixing plugin that I've used so far, all free. Pretty encouraging, isn't it? Makes you want to almost go download this yourself and try to write your own metal drum parts yourself, doesn't it? Yeah. Motherfucker can dream, can he? Anyways, so there's one last, there's one disadvantage to this particular drum setup, and that is that, there's one little bottleneck in its realism. And that is that every single thing you saw here was very clearly recorded separately, individually. There was no room mic in either of these plugins, which puts a bit of a damper on the realism of the proceedings. But, surprise, surprise, there's a way around that. This track here, Faux Room. This right here is essentially the solution to that. The fake-ass room mic. These were not recorded all together in the same space, but this is how we can trick people into thinking that that's what's happening. So, before I explain what's actually going on there, I'm just going to go ahead and play the track and let you listen to it yourself. Check it out. So this may be a little too loud, but again, it's sort of a room mic. That's the closest you're going to get for almost free anyways. So let's go over the signal chain here. I'm not going to go too into detail on this because that would be completely plagiarizing a certain YouTube video that I got this from. I'm not going to go into much detail here because the dude who made the original video could probably explain it a lot better. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and do the ethical thing and put the stream on hold a second time so I can go grab the link to it and share it to you right here, assuming the auto mod doesn't apply to me, which is a big assumption. So, yeah, loading screen one more time. Please bear with me a moment. pardon the holdup, I am back once again, and this is the video that I believe I followed to get this method. That said, it turns out that several other people have made similar drum room, fake drum room sort of videos since I first looked into this method, so I might have to look at those and experiment a bit with them, but for the immediate moment, that was the one I followed. So, again, I'm not going to go into too much detail for the sake of not being a plagiarizing fucknob, but I will tell you, most of the EQ moves, it's just stacking several EQs on top of each other, first of all. Basically just getting rid of proximity and presence, just making it sound further away than it actually is via equalization. And then the next step, this is the only plugin that is not free that is in the single chain. This is Audio Assault Head Crusher. It's a distortion plugin that's designed to just distort things, just make things sound crazy. If you're familiar with Sound Toys' Decapitator, it's essentially a budget version of that. That said, the only reason I bring this up is because, first of all, if you catch it on sale, it's basically free. It goes as low as $7. That's pretty nuts. But, second of all, I've experimented with some free distortions, and they just didn't give me quite the effect I was after, so Head Crusher it is. Audio Assault, fantastic plugin manufacturers. I use a bunch of their stuff, not recently, but I used to. I might bring them back out of the fold again, but either way, this is what I used. And the point of this was to simulate sort of just the drums just in a space being played loud as a motherfucker. Just too loud, arguably, and just blowing out the mic. That's the logic behind this plugin. Again, you want more detail, look at the video. And then finally, surprise, surprise, a reverb impulse, which emulates a room. Yeah, a room mic, room impulse. Pretty obvious thing here. That said, and if I recall correctly, this reverb impulse was actually a free one. Simplicity M7. That's the name of the reverb impulse. I'm pretty sure if you look that up, technically the site that was offering it is down, but archive.org should still have it archived along with the download to it. Fun to play with. Not just rooms, it has plates, halls, chambers, very useful set of impulses. And again, much like the plates, I filtered out a whole shitload of high-end because, again, this is the room mic. You do not need that much high-end in it. And then finally, a compressor. You're supposed to use an 1174 style compressor for this, and conveniently enough, Reaper has one built in, 1175, how on the nose. With these settings right here. Not exactly rocket science. So yeah, that's the final sound. So yeah, downside is that doesn't sound very good loud. It's better off as a subtle element, so if you want to do the big rock sort of shit, you can't really pull it off, but in any case, still, again, this is a fantastic drum sound that you can get for free. Also, hello, Eric. Surprised you're still awake, but I'm glad you showed up anyways. Unfortunately, I just finished up what I wanted to stream for the night. Awkwardly enough. That's the end of the drum tutorial. That's pretty much everything I had in mind. So, I suppose if there's any lurkers who want to, I suppose I can open the floor to questions. If anybody has anything they want to know, whether it be about this or the previous, either way, I'm here to answer them right after I take my sip. Anyone, anything. Guess not. Yeah, that's not bad of it. Akash says, welcome to the stream, first of all. Second of all, what are the drum samples I tend to use? Well, again, so the thing is, I pretty much exclusively use samples, because sort of my gimmick is that I make metal with all sampled instruments. Unfortunately, I got to load up another project to do that. Because again, this is just an option that I'm offering to people. This is just a almost completely free option. I suppose I can pull up, alright, track room templates, metal drums, here we go. If I bring this up, so these are the samples I usually use. This is Tune Track Easy Drummer, specifically metal exclamation point, except that's soloed, silly me. Yeah, nothing too out of the ordinary there, except for the snare sample is from the Hard Rock Library, Tom of Bell Brass. I went over this already. The shells are just from the Punchy Super Kit. I think the cymbals are all stock, except for this ride, which is from another. This is from Made of Metal, specifically. Because I do not care for the ride that comes stock. That bell sample is way too fucking quiet. I don't like that. So, Made of Metal. I don't remember which one of those I use usually, but next time I load up a template, it'll blow my usual one anyways. Again, fantastic sound. And if I bring this part over, get this, paste it onto this track. Whoops. This F part's gotta go. That's from, that's a gimmick of something exclusive to Sean Pandy drums. Again, nice and massive, just like I like it. I like my drums big. Because I like my mixes to be big. I don't do crazy, like, tech death sort of shit, where the guitars have more gain than anybody knows what to do with, so, I don't really need to keep my drums tight, so to speak. Like, sometimes, like, they get technical, but not so technical that having a room and a plate would wash everything away. So, I like big sounds. And I cannot lie. So, I suppose I'll, for anybody new to the audience, I might as well show off the other two instruments I use. I also use Easy Bass from the same manufacturers. Allow me to... Sure, metal pick, why not? Now again, this is more for the benefit of new viewers. Those of you who've been here before know what's up already. So, yeah. Yeah, fuck it, I might as well just get a little groove going. Why not? Straight 4-4. C minor, C major. I don't think so. Let's do E minor. Perfect. All right. So I'll just drag it there. Obviously, nothing. Hardly a mind-blowing track, but again, this is all for demonstration. So yeah, sample metal can sound surprisingly good if you know what you're doing. And if over the fact that I get way off track, this is also an alternative easy basis, like 120. It's a new plugin and like never goes on sale. So again, if you want a freebase, get Sforzando first of all, which is basically freeware contact, and second of all, get Unreal Instruments Standard Bass V2. Which brings me to what I use for my guitars. Allow me to show you what's basically become my personal signature. So this is Sforzando, this is the interface, it's pretty much free contact. But if I load up, if I go into this folder, Unreal Instruments, Metal GTX. This is going to take a minute to load, so you'll have to bear with it. Although it's nowhere near as ridiculous as it used to be when I was still on a RPM hard drive. Ever since I switched to solid state, like, this is still crazy long for a plugin to load, but first of all, it's free, so you gotta give it some allowance, and second of all, that's still not too crazy. Okay, where's the interface? Okay, it's not supposed to look like this. That's incredibly strange. Fortunately, this isn't easy to fix, so let me throw up another loading screen. Let me fix this real quick. Okay, that's fucking awkward. I can't, it didn't let me reinstall the GUI, so, I guess I'll just have to look less pretty than usual. Because again, veterans of my streams know that it's not supposed to look like this, but I don't know what's going on here. Whatever. Yeah, fuck it. Let's just write a part for demonstration purposes and we'll call it a day. But first, let's load up the names, just so I know what I'm doing. Snap it to 1/8. Yeah, for the sake of not completely wasting your time and playing something monotonous, I think we're going to stick with 4 measures for this one. Now again, this is the DI, so we're going to do it quick and dirty. So, we'll just throw on MTA. This is basically an amp sim. It looks like a pedal, but it's an amp in a box. Metal zone, that sort of idea. And then we'll load that IR. And we'll just go with their Frontman Classic. Why not? First of all, let's see if I didn't completely fuck this up. Here's something I forgot to do. Sussault. So yeah, this is based around key switches, whole shitload of articulations you can use to play the guitar. And then if I switch over to CC32, this is basically a power chord switch. If you wanted to play power chords, this is how you do it. In theory. Yeah, SOSP5 CC32. That's how it's supposed to work. Yeah, I guess you'll have to take me on my word for it. Yeah, that's what happens with free software. It's jank. You gotta expect some fucked up shit to happen sometimes. Anyways. Full mix. Unusually thin sounding full mix because I usually double track all that shit, but again, this was a very exceedingly brief demonstration to show what I'm doing. So, yeah. If you want to hear that actually in action, you should visit my music channel. It should be in the description of my Twitch channel. Which, should be right below you, assuming you're not watching this full screen or something. I do recommend it, especially my, as a matter of fact, I think my loading screen is actually playing an example of my music, the few times I put it up. I don't recall which, but it should be. Anyways. So, yeah, that's basically my workflow in a nutshell. I make metal with nothing but almost entirely free plugins and all samples all the time. Because I am not good enough at guitar to write the sort of crazy technical shit I want to write. Plus, if you want an example of a sort of a pseudo mix breakdown, there's also one of my past VODs. Thank you for following, Akashes. I'm glad I impressed you with this. Thank you. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for giving me your time, and I hope to see you around very soon. I hope you enjoy my music, if you decide to check it out. Because I'd like to think I've done the grind enough to I think my music is listenable at the very least. I still want you to check it out and just form your own opinion on it, but I like to think I do a good enough job with it. But yes, with that, I believe we have come. That's about all she. Thanks, Art. Appreciate it. But yeah, that's basically all she wrote. I've gone over absolutely everything I wanted to about drums and went off on a wacky tangent about what exactly how I do what I do for our new friend here. Unless he has any further questions, I think I'm going to call it a night. Or if anybody else has questions, obviously. Because, again, feedback. Can't know what to do unless you tell me what I'm doing. But, yeah. Either way, I'm still, real, You're welcome, Larksing, and thank you for coming here. Appreciate it. Yeah. You're welcome, welcome. Real nice. Thank you. You're all too kind. Thank you very much. So, I guess with that, we're calling it a night here. So, this being Twitch, it is time for us to pick out our customary raid target. And this is a pretty crowded slot, so we should be fairly spoiled for choice. So, let's see who's on. We've got Stalker, Kuragi again, Komodo, Hinin, and Thief. Yeah, you know what? It's been a while since I've raided Hinin. Let's go say hello to Princess Hiningao, the pretty princess who is also a very nice, very good fighting game player. I've been up against her in Action Core and Strive, I believe, and lady knows what she's doing. She's a real good fighting game player. And has a pretty nice theme song as well, something I aspire to write later on. But, yeah, we're raiding Hinin, so once I throw up a goodbye screen, thank you all very much for attending. Thank you for putting up with my music geekery. I'm way better at these streams than I am gaming, so still appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and I will see you very fucking soon. Good night.